But since you're eager, Casey, why don't you become the first to...
No, I'm sorry. I'm so used to being in charge. I'm Casey Kula. I'm a Yamhill County Commissioner.
Christina Stevenson, civil rights attorney, small business owner.
I'm sorry?
Civil rights attorney, small business owner.
And your business is your law practice?
It is, yeah.
Solo practitioner?
No, I have a law partner with 6 employees.
And
Hi, I'm Sherry Helt. I want to apologize to everybody for not being there in person. It was my intention to be there and shake your hands and I'll look all of you in the eye, but I have a cold and I did not want to get any of you sick. So I really want to thank you for accommodating my cold and using the Zoom, which is not my favorite, but in this instance works well. So thank you.
no problem. We should probably introduce ourselves real fast. I'm Aaron Mesh, the news editor at Willamette Week.
I'm Sophie Peel, I'm a reporter.
I'm Tess Risky, I'm a reporter.
Nigel Jacobs, reporter.
Mark Sussman.
Editor-in-chief.
Anthony Effinger, reporter.
Great.
Awesome.
Why don't you tell us about why it is you're running for office?
Yeah, so born and raised in Oregon. I'm a mom, I'm a civil rights attorney, small business owner, and the reason I'm running for labor commissioner is because I actually fundamentally believe that Oregon should be the best place to live and work in this country. And I know that sounds like a lot, but I mean, it's only gonna happen if we elect people who actually believe that. And you know, my day job is I fight for workers. You know, workers throughout the state have had their wages stolen, been discriminated against, in unsafe workplaces, and my tiny law firm has gone toe-to-toe with, you know, Wells Fargo, and we beat them in court, and I'm damn proud of that. But I also own and operate a business, you know, a business I started at a kitchen table when my son was 6 months old, and I know what it means to make payroll every month, you know, the salary, the taxes, the benefits. And whether it's that scary time in March of 2020 or a banner year, you know, I know what it means to pay my employees well before I pay myself. And, you know, the way I think about it, Oregon makes you a promise. If you work hard and you play by the rules, you should have someone in your corner, you know, someone who's looking out for you, who wants you to win. And that's the promise I want to uphold as labor commissioner.
Casey.
Awesome. So I'm the Yamhill County Commissioner, and I am very proud to have been very heavily involved in expelling Mike Neerman from the legislature. And the reason why I worked so hard to get him out, sorry, Representative Help, was that I was getting the same emails that he was getting, and that were very violent in nature, that came from a place of trying to uproot democracy and upend it. And what I realize is that our democracy is at stake, and one of the things that builds distrust in our democracy is when agencies fail continually. We've seen that. I don't need to go through the list. You know the agency disasters that we've had in the state of Oregon, and people lose trust every time. As a county commissioner, I know how to run a good agency. And my goal with BOLI is to make sure that we have an agency that's fully supported, doing the civil rights watchdog work, doing the worker rights watchdog work, but really strengthening democracy.
So you talk about the distrust that the average voter has when they can't trust that their government and agencies are doing a good job. Are you saying that that's true of BOLI currently?
I'm saying that I get messages, emails, phone calls all the time from both union leaders to professors, who say that either BOLI has failed them or has done an inadequate job of investigating.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just reading a story in which you talk about this Chuck Sheketoff's group. He's no longer there, doing a report showing that only 1% of wage theft.
Yeah.
First of all,
we're both very aware of this one.
The idea that there's wage theft, I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah, right. And I mean, some people,
So, I don't know, I read that and I say Val Hoyle's done a shitty job. If she's only penalized 1% of the companies that have been engaging in wage theft, what am I missing?
Right. So, I mean, I'm happy to talk more about it, but I will say that we both know, Representative Held or Sherry Held knows, that we're at a near historic low for staffing at the Bureau of Labor and Industries, and yet we have the most people in the state of Oregon we've ever had. We have the most programs, thanks to work you've been involved in. We have more programs that BOLI is responsible for. There's more whistleblower complaints than ever before with longer caseloads. So you're right that I think that you're right and that you're hearing the same thing I'm hearing, which is that BOLI is failing a lot of people, and there are things we can do about it.
Representative
Yeah.
Help, can you introduce yourself to us a little bit?
I'm Sherry Helt. You can just go by Sherry. That's great. Thank you for the formal title. First, I would like to address an apology that Casey apologized when he said that he was instrumental in getting Mike Neerman out of the legislature. I supported removing Mike Neerman from the legislature, as well as all of my Republican colleagues did. So I just wanted to point that out. I was in the building when that security was breached with my son, who is serving in Poland currently, and my daughter, and it was an unacceptable act, and I was proud to support that. So let me introduce myself. You asked why I'm running. I wanted to tell you why I'm qualified to run. First, I'm a wife of 30 years, which proves my dedication. I'm a proud mom of 3 children. 2 are grown. One has a career, one is in college, and one is in middle school. I'm a business owner for the last 18 years in the restaurant industry, which is sort of like taking an airplane off while you're assembling the wings for 18 years. And I was a school board member for 9 years at Bethel Pine School, 6 years at Oregon School Boards Association, and a year and a half on the state school board. And then I'm also was a former legislator. In all of those places, I never held my seat to be warm. I always had an objective to do something better and to achieve a task. On the school board, I wanted to up graduation rates and get career and technical education in place. We did that by securing Measure 98 funds for career and technical education, and our graduation rates were moved up by 10% during the time that I served with my fellow board members. And in the legislature, I worked very hard across party aisles to pass the Paid Family Leave Medical Act, and amongst other things like the Classroom Clears Bill, and I worked with my colleagues, Senator Gelser and Representative Clem, to do that. And then also as a business owner, we've seen businesses struggle more than ever in the last 2 years. I never thought that I could go have my doors closed and go from 104 employees to 12 overnight and lose 90% of my sales. So I have a lot of institutional knowledge that I bring to this office, but that's not why I'm running. Why I'm running is I believe this agency is on the wrong track, and that we need to not accept the status quo, and we need to be able to make an agency that is upholding its obligations and be transparent to the public and utilizing its taxpayer base to fidelity and upholding everyone's civil rights and discrimination cases, as well as fair housing. And so that's why I'm here today, and I thank you for your time.
Could you give us a couple of examples of why you think BOLI's on the wrong track? What has it done or not done that you are unhappy about?
First, it is still closed. Most of our workers, almost all of our workers, are working in person. You all are working in person today. I think that if you are coming forward with a civil rights case, a discrimination case, or a fair housing case, you deserve to have someone that is able to speak to you and listen. Most people want to be heard when something has went wrong. I know this from my customer service inside of my restaurant. If something has happened wrong, I sit down and listen to people or talk to them and listen to what they had to say. So first and foremost, the office is still not open. It needs to be opened. Secondly, there is a backlog of cases that have been unassigned. That means those cases are not even backlogged in the nature of the case itself. It means that they haven't even been assigned to someone to work the case yet. And that's just printed on the website like, okay, it's just behind. I also went down to Medford to go see and visit the BOLI office while I was there. There's a giant sign that says Oregon Business and Labor on the front door, and when you go inside, there is no BOLI office inside. If you find the website on the BOLI page, so it's still claimed that there is a place to go if you are having issues as an employee, but there is no place to go. That is just unacceptable in my opinion. Also, we've had the The Oregon Human Services Department has been having computer troubles with how they pay their employees for SEIU. The SEIU employees, it's over 8,000 employees, I believe, and it's been going on for over 7 months. These are home health care workers. These people work with the elderly, work with disabled people, and they show up on time, they work hard, and they are not getting paychecks, and BOLI's voice has been nowhere. So those are a few examples that I would illustrate of where I think this agency is failing our public and taxpayers tremendously.
Thank you.
Ms. Stevenson, would you tell us how you think BOLI's doing?
Yeah, I mean, stepping back with the context of we have less than half the staff there was 40 years ago. So, and of course, Oregon's only gotten bigger. And the charge is not only workplace, but public spaces and housing. So there's a lot on the to-do list and not enough people to do it. So, I mean, what you were saying about wage theft here. So, you know, I'll tell you, in my practice, I took on, I spent 5 years actually going after one employer, good 6 figures of wages, that they cheated their employees out of these wages, right? About 3 years in, they say, okay, fine, we'll pay the wages and we'll pay the penalties, and then sign on the dotted line. They said, actually, forget it. We'll just change our LLC, we'll change our business structure, forget it. None of these employees are getting paid. And so I think a lot of people, look, I got paid $0 at that point, and a lot of people might have said, well, I spent 3 years, did my best, that's it, right? But that is not what I did. I spent the next 2 years naming every single DBA, the successor corporation, the 2 individual owners, the trust that this guy set up to get around this, right? And this is the kind of approach that I think we need at BOLI for wage theft. So, we have a lot of creative entities that are happening here, joint employers, successor employers. We need to make sure that we're naming all of the relevant individuals to make sure that people are getting the wages that they're due. I mean, this is just the bottom line is right now workers are not even getting the penalties. So what is happening? Cheating employers are getting essentially an interest-free loan. I mean, and so that statistic, that report, it was, I think 2013, 2019, 6-year period, and 16% of the employers, these are all substantiated wage claims, 16% got a penalty, and it was 1% was collected. So the collection is the other key to it. It's, we got to get the penalties assessed, number one, and then of course we have to get them collected for these employees. And so the other thing is, look, everyone's going to say, more money, we need more money. But this is why what I want us to be doing is this model. It's called strategic enforcement. And it's a model that's been piloted in other places through Rutgers University. And basically what it does is it says, okay, we're never going to have enough money to do what we need to do. So we got to be literally strategic with our resources. So it's proactively investigating workplaces where we have the data, where we know this industry has a history of doing wrong by employees, reaching out to those industries and the workers in those industries with proactive investigation. This is literally like talking to that home health care worker. Are you being harassed on the job? Because I'll tell you, it's very common, but these folks are not calling BOLI. But if we reach out to these folks and start to make a concerted effort in the industries where we know they are doing wrong, then we can actually use all of BOLI's powers.
What industries would you target?
I'm gonna look at the data, honestly. I have anecdotal data from over a decade of work in this area, but I'm gonna look at the data to make sure that we're using our very, very scarce resources efficiently.
Anecdotally, what industries?
Construction industry for wage theft is pretty common. Let's see, home health is another big one. We've seen restaurant work as well.
So part of the problem and what Christina is alluding to with the strategic enforcement model is that after Michael Fesser's really awful arrest, unlawful arrest. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Westland. Yeah, Portland police, but on the behest of Westland. This was a case where BOLI did an investigation. It was not an adequate one, but at the time it appeared that with the limited data that was available, that there wasn't anything that his employer had done wrong. So now there's a blanket per Commissioner Hoyle's policy, there's a blanket, we treat all investigations the same, all civil rights investigations, which also means that there's not enough time to do a good investigation and there's high caseloads. So strategically looking at particular industries is an important part of moving away from a model where we're just looking at everybody equally.
Having an elected commissioner of Bureau of Labor is pretty unusual, at least in the states I've lived in. And I'm just wondering if you have thoughts about whether this really should be a politically elected.
I certainly have thoughts about that, but should we offer an opportunity to
I
others?
keep forgetting about it.
I'm just so used to this that.
Sherry, should this be an elected job?
Sorry.
Absolutely.
Why?
Because it's so important for our taxpayers and our voters and Oregonians to be able to have their voice. And I believe that the voice of the people is very important. We've just been through a historic pandemic, and we've watched a lot of our agencies fail. Our unemployment department failed to get out wages for 16 or so weeks, and for most of the people, I know that some people went as long as a year without getting their back wages. And people were frustrated. People have been frustrated with the Human Services Department for not upholding their obligation to the home health care workers. There's been many instances of the agencies really failing, and the people have had no voice. And I know that people really want to have a voice, and they want to be able to have an agency that's working for them. And this gives them a stake in the game and lets them know that their voice matters, and that they count, and that they can have a voice in an agency to make sure that they like the way the agency is being run and upheld. So I believe in voting, and I believe very much in the power of people to be able to make sure that agencies are running correctly.
Understood.
Can I step back? Can I ask what?
Well, no, he was excited about answering this question.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
Let's have him answer the question.
Yeah, I respect what Sherry Held has said, and I think it's really important. In my perspective as an elected official who runs a county, is that there's an important influence line where right now BOLI, as you all know, does first stop investigations into civil rights and workplace rights, and to have an elected official essentially protecting from undue influence investigators is, to me, one of the most important parts of it. And I find myself doing a lot of that on a regular basis, is essentially running interference between people who want to influence outcomes.
And you're saying because you're an elected official, you're more able to do that?
That's what I believe.
Because
you take both the publicity, you take the hits, you can provide the conversations, the public face while your staff does the
you have
important
no
work.
job security.
Sorry?
You have no job security,
That's true.
right? Isn't that why Supreme Court judges get lifetime appointments, so that they're truly independent?
But we have to do what's right.
Gotcha. This question is taking too long to answer, and it's probably not worth it, but are you,
What was your question?
Yeah.
are you,
Yes, I think,
should be like
responsiveness, accountability are important for elected officials, but I think I want to recognize that what we've seen is that it can be an equity issue too, right? That if the legislature, if the salaries aren't commensurate with what needs to happen, maybe you're not getting the diverse kind of legislature you need. I think that could eventually happen with any of our elected positions.
Anthony.
Just quickly, I'm not looking for a new racket here, but how do you steal wages, like lots of wages? Is this like just grabbing somebody the last paycheck or their vacation time, or?
It takes a lot of.
I want to know too.
It takes a lot of forms. A lot. So sometimes it's okay. I'm putting down 60 hours and then getting paid
Getting paid
20.
overtime,
Yeah, either not getting paid overtime or only getting part of it under the table, or a lot of these places will have, a lunch break policy where it's like, oh yeah, you got your 30 minutes, right? Deduct, and you never
But they didn't.
They didn't. It's just,
And this accrues.
what's that?
These amounts of time
Yeah.
accrue over time, and then somebody says, wait a second, I'm losing a lot of money here.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you're making,
Yeah.
$15 an hour, and that adds up.
Yep.
So the head of BOLI's job is to sort of do some enforcement of wage and hour laws. Does the state of Oregon and our laws, are they significantly different, better or worse for employees than the rest of the country? I'm just looking for a little national context here.
I would say the conventional wisdom is that Oregon and California are among the leaders in workplace,
worker protections?
yeah, worker protections.
On wage and hour issues.
Our wage and hour is not as strong as California at all.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, so an example would be the enforceability. So there's a couple things that are only enforced through BOLI. There's less penalties. There's only really one main penalty with BOLI, which is the 30-day penalty. So if you have a late paycheck, you get up to 30 days pay at 8 hours a day.
I'm sorry, if your paycheck is late,
Yeah, if your paycheck's late,
you're entitled to,
you're entitled to up to 30 days pay. And that's really the kind of the max. I mean, I'm
How late?
simplifying it a lot, but
What's late? What qualifies as late?
under the law, it depends on, if you gave notice or didn't give notice, 48 hours,
Oh, okay.
Those sort of things. And we don't have a really great tool for when workers have been misclassified, which is what's happening quite frequently, which is someone is called an independent contractor when they're truly an employee, right? And so this is another kind of form that wage theft takes, and I think it's incumbent on BOLI, right, when we're looking through the factors, and they're factors, the legal factors, is this person an employee? If we find they're misclassified, it's incumbent on us to say, look, you didn't pay your payroll taxes, you didn't pay your workers' comp insurance, you didn't pay your unemployment insurance like our good employers did. You need to be held accountable. I mean, we're not just gonna
Do you
ignore
think
that.
most of BOLI's issues are due to understaffing? Or do you
No.
think there are issues that would not be fixed by staffing up?
Sorry, you were.
No,
This
no
was
one wants to
directed
pipe
at
up
you,
first.
Christina. I didn't mean to.
No, go for
go
it.
ahead.
Like I'm like chair.
Go for it,
May
go
I?
for it.
Okay. Staffing is an issue because every time it's similar to counties. So there's this thing right where you can't require a county or a city to do a new program unless you provide the funding for it, and that doesn't exist with BOLI. So whenever there's a new program, there isn't new funding that comes along with it, which means that BOLI is trying to do more work every year with fewer resources. So there is a legitimate need for more staff in that role. A large chunk of money came from the Future Ready Oregon bill, so we're not, there is money in the apprenticeship and training division. However, there is definitely a need for a better workflow, and I know that's a super boring thing, but right now the software that BOLI uses is not, there's a room for improvement. And that room for improvement can be both on the complainant side, the business or employer side, but also just how BOLI works with all those people. And then on the media side, that right now it's a very challenging thing to get public records out of them.
Is that driving the backlog, the system that needs updating?
Yeah, so every time, every time you have to email somebody about something and then you don't hear back and then you're waiting and then it goes in it gets further and further out.
Yeah.
The delays build up over time for every single one of them. And the reason why I know that the state can do better is that I was a cannabis licensee from 2016 to 2021. So happy day after 420. Sorry, this was just for Mark, actually. Thank you for laughing at me about that one. But the OLCC eventually adopted just a basic dashboard, right? It's super simple. BOLI doesn't have a similar system right now, and it moves things along much more quickly.
Okay.
So, quick question, Sherry. So Christina makes her living basically going after bad employers as a trial lawyer, civil rights lawyer. you've been a restaurant owner for a long time, so you're kind of on the other side of the fence. You're a farmer and a county commissioner. So I want Sherry and Casey both to make a case as to why we should consider you when we've got somebody here who already kind of does the job. So Sherry, you first, please.
Well, I think we've just heard a lot of conversation about how bad businesses are. And I think that that's one of the things that's hard for me as a business owner. We're innocent until proven guilty, right? And so every case should be approached with a fair and balanced eye, and make sure that we punish the bad apples and that we don't assume that everybody is guilty of wrongdoing. The example was made that, someone could clock out of their break at 29 minutes. Well, maybe they wanted to get back to work. Like maybe they didn't know that they had to clock in. There's always this assumption that businesses are bad. And I would like to tell you what my business did when the pandemic hit. We had 104 employees, and the first thing that we did, we lost we went down to 10% of our wages. We were closed to in-person dining, and my husband and I reached into our savings account and paid all of 100% of our employees' health care. Why? Because we knew that we were going to be what was told to us 3 months of not having a normal business. We were very concerned that we were going into a pandemic where all of our workers would need their health care insurance, and we knew that when they went on unemployment, they would not have access to our health care insurance, and we wouldn't be able to pay it due to the way the regulations are written. So even though we had no income coming in at that moment, we didn't know we would get 10% of our income coming in. We took that out of our funds to make sure that we could pay for their health care. And that is important to me because that talks about the character of businesses. What's good for businesses is good for employees. We're only as good as our employees are. If our employees are not happy, then our businesses don't thrive. And so I think what we need to be talking about is a lot of education. Businesses have had regulations change so much over the last 2 years that it's been hard to keep up. And we have new regulations coming in with the Paid Family Leave Act and overtime ag laws. We need to make sure that we are communicating. And we can't make excuses. We have a $35 million budget in BOLI, and I have no reason to think that we can't uphold what's asked of us from the law at this moment. I don't have any reason to think that the staff can't do what is asked.
Thank you.
I would ask the staff what they need and give the tools that they need and try and do some innovative strategic implementation.
Great,
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Casey, same question. Why, no offense, you're a county commissioner and a farmer, you're not a lawyer. So why would you be better than Christina?
Yeah, I mean, Christina is an advocate, right? I work with a lot of advocates. My belief is that in this moment, when there's distrust about government, which is really one of the things that a democracy does, right, is that we help each other through the government. That we actually need somebody who knows how to run an agency, who knows how to do executive leadership in a government, that we don't need an advocate. And I love our advocates. I work with a lot of advocates, activists, and they have their place. I work with a lot of unions and bargaining units. They have advocates on their sides. What we need at BOLI in order to really make sure that it's succeeding at the important work of civil rights and workplace rights is to have somebody who's really dedicated to doing the boring and sometimes challenging and sometimes spicy work of rebuilding departments, of making sure that there's good culture within the agency, within divisions.
My guess is everybody else in this room knows this, so I apologize, but what do you farm?
Yeah, so where?
No, what?
Oh, certified organic vegetables, tree fruits. Until last year, I was also a licensed cannabis grower. Many things over the years because that's what we do.
Tree fruits.
Tree fruit, so apples, pears, plums, cherries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No apricots.
No apricots.
Okay.
No, we could talk about that later. We could talk about the whole fake farmer thing too if you want.
So I'd also like to hear, just very briefly, because I know you guys got to run,
This is really fun though.
your theory of we've talked about how a lot of people who steal wages, for instance, don't get properly, they don't get fined, they don't get punished. So there are different theories of how punishment works. Do you really throw the book at somebody and make an example so other employers, and I agree with Sherry, most employers do the right thing, most are good employers, but a substantial number aren't. So what's your theory of enforcement and punishment? We'll start with you, Christina.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. I don't want anyone, like, I'm a business owner too, just to be clear. You know, I have to jump through the same hoops that everybody else has to, and I know what it's like to comply with these laws, and I know that, you know, good businesses don't want to compete with the bad actors, right? Who this is their, wage theft is their business model. That is fundamentally unfair, right? So when I think about how this agency needs to be run, yes, it needs more technical assistance. We got 6 people in that division. Technical assistance is where the employers can call up and ask for help. You know, yes, it needs more resources, but I actually want it to be, I want us to be able to build the trust with our good actors so much so that they can actually call us when they've made a mistake and we can help them comply with the law. You know, that is, I don't think any good employers need to be scared of me. It's the bad employers, right? It is the employers that have a history of repeat offending. And this is also part of the strategic enforcement model. I mean, there's kind of gradation. This isn't like some kind of gotcha stuff. That's no fun. It is when people are intentionally violating the law. Yes, it is incumbent upon BOLI to use all of its powers to send a message that's system-wide that we do care. You know, we are going to collect on those wages.
Okay, Casey?
Can you repeat the question?
What's your theory?
Sorry, I was like thinking about it.
What's your philosophy on enforcement and punishment?
Yeah, so I'm going to bring this back to the cannabis world because it's fun to talk about weed. Everybody gets a little laugh, right? And so my experience with the OLCC was really amazing, and I know that most licensees who survive may not say that to you, but what we found was that we started out in an antagonistic, if you were the regulator and I'm the regulated, it was an antagonistic relationship with a gun and a badge. And we finally, over time, when we figured out what each side needed, we all developed basically a working relationship where we were all committed to having safe legal cannabis. And that was the mission of both the regulator and the regulated. And part of that looked like developing a safe harbor for minor offenses that weren't going to affect that greater mission of safe legal cannabis. And so I look at it from the same model as where we use fines as deterrents for the bad actors, because fines do prevent by deterrence, right? So you're like, oh, I'm actually going to lose my license if I do that thing over and over and over again. But if we have a camera down and I call up my regulator and say, hey, the camera's down, they let me know, and then we go from there and we get it fixed. And I think the same model is really important. We don't actually need new authority to do that. We just need to have, investigators need to have the discretion around it. I do want to put one note out there, because you had said, like, is BOLI doing shitty work? And one very specific thing that I think has been very important is that under Commissioner Avakian, HUD rescinded, Housing and Urban Development rescinded the substantial equivalency metric that allowed BOLI to actually investigate both federal and state fair housing claims. And Val Hoyle got that back. And I think that's an important thing to note, is that she worked really hard and the team worked really hard to do that.
Sure.
Sorry, that was an aside, but.
Your sort of theory, especially since I don't know if you've had BOLI investigations into your restaurants?
I never have.
Yeah, well,
In
that's good.
18 years, I never have.
What restaurant, Sherry?
What?
What's the name of your restaurant?
Oh, I will give a shameless plug. Zydeco Kitchen and Cocktails in Bend, Oregon. Before the pandemic, we also had another restaurant that was called Bistro 28, but our landlord terminated our lease due to the closures. They wanted someone that could be open, and we did not want to abide by that.
Well, I bet your restaurants are great. I'm kind of disappointed that it's not Sherry's.
Yeah.
Okay,
that was taken.
Hey,
So-
if there was a pot reference, they'd probably be more laughing.
So you're just quickly your sort of thoughts on enforcement and punishment?
Well, it's really important that this office is not about weaponizing enforcement, and we have seen that in the past out of this office. It's very important that we abide by the American principle that everybody's innocent until proven guilty, and that we work with people to educate them first and foremost. Again, the rules, I can't tell you how much they have changed over the last 2 years for people that have been operating businesses. It's like we're closed, we're open, we're 25%, we're 6 feet apart, we're not 6 feet apart, we're masked, we're unmasked. We have to have arrows on the floor, we have to have different exits and different entrances, all the while we maintain our supply chains that we are working through that are short. And so everybody is doing their best. Everyone that's in business right now, to be real honest with you, is extremely exhausted. They've been working to, all the employees, all the owners have been working to make sure that these businesses are still alive. I'm sure you've seen a lot of your favorite businesses go out of business. And it's been really hard, but I think with enforcement, we need to use education first, we need to use mediation techniques, and we need to make sure that both sides are able to be satisfied with the results and come together. I think when we join together, we're much stronger than when we're battling it out and using a big giant stick. But if there's habitual offenders, I think that's when you use fines and you take out the bad actors. But you first are using a mediation technique.
Thank you.
So because I promised we'd get everybody out of here by 6:30, which we're not going to quite manage, but likely close. Can I get each of you to quickly tell us the single endorsement that you've received that you are most proud of? Christina.
I'm going to use labor commissioners as a category, last 5 labor commissioners.
Great. Casey.
Since we've got 5, I'm going with Governor Kunigowski and the Confederate Tribes of Grand Island Community Board.
Good choices. Sherry.
Oh, that's really hard.
I mean, they got a couple, so you can do a couple.
Way to push it.
Yeah, everybody's just pushing the envelope on the regulator over here.
I think Secretary Clarno would be my most proud endorsement. One, because I consider her a friend and she considers me a friend, and that's a very proud moment to have someone who has brought such fair and balanced policies to our state as the Speaker of the House and then as the Secretary of State, and upheld election integrity in such a difficult election. And so I'm very, very proud to have her endorsement. But I would also say that, since I'm stretching the rules, that my most important endorsement is always from my family, because it's important to have my kids stand beside me and my husband, because I can't do this work of community service without their support, and I know that, and I'm very proud to have their support.
Great. This is the chance to have each of you ask each other a question. So if you have a question for your opponent, make it an actual question, not a filibuster. But if you have an actual question for your opponent, would pick one opponent, one question.
So Sherry, in reviewing the folks that are supporting you, I noticed that there are folks that have opposed things like sick leave, or have taken the position that minimum wage shouldn't even exist. And so I guess how would you tell Oregon voters that...
Who has endorsed her that believes there should be no minimum wage?
The Oregon Farm Bureau.
For farm workers.
For farm workers, yeah, minimum wage, right. And how would you tell Oregon voters, like, even though I've got this support from people who don't believe in things like sick leave or minimum wage, I'm still going to enforce the laws that are on the books?
I don't know a business owner that's paying minimum wage at this point. I mean, all of our employees with the labor shortages, we're all paying much more than minimum wage, first and foremost. But when someone endorses me, they endorse me and my values. And I have explained my values of who I am as a business owner, and that I pay 100% of my workers, my staff, and my co-workers healthcare, and I pay 6% 401k matching, and I also paid a week's vacation for everyone last year as well.
Sure.
With sick leave. And
Sure.
since you mentioned sick leave, I would like to mention that during COVID, I paid 100% of everybody's wages, including tips.
Sherry,
They were out on COVID.
with all due respect, we're short of time and you're not answering the question, so let me reframe the question. Do you agree with the Farm Bureau's agenda as it relates to wage and hours?
Oh, I thought she asked me about how I would address supporting them.
Okay, so I'm asking a different question, but it's peeling off of that. You've got the endorsement of the Farm Bureau, they're opposed to minimum wage, I think they're also opposed to overtime.
Yeah.
It's an understatement.
Do you support that?
I'm proud to have the Farm Bureau's support, and I don't support, I of course support minimum wage. I support high-skilled paying jobs. That's why I want to get more people in apprenticeships and out of minimum wage jobs. But I don't believe that the Farm Bureau is anti-minimum wage. That may have been during the debate when minimum wage was passed. But I've not known
Okay.
farm workers not to pay minimum wage.
All right, thank you. Do you have a question of either opponent
Do I have a question?
that you want to ask either of your opponents here?
I'm going to get in your way for a moment.
Can I go last?
Yeah, go ahead. Casey, do you have a question?
I was going to make a silly question that was related to the fake farmer thing that you all got to. Do you know, have you ever lifted a bale of hay with your bare hands? But that's actually not a serious question.
Yes.
And don't you also,
That's what I thought. Yeah.
High fives.
but Casey, don't you also, in addition to gloves, use hay hooks?
I always use hay hooks, and I never wear gloves because they get stuck in the...
But if you have a hay hook, you don't need a glove.
Yeah, I love hay hooks, except when they go into your leg.
Okay, so you didn't really have a question. It's your
No,
turn.
I don't.
Sure.
Yeah, but I appreciate the offer.
Sherry?
Christina, you mentioned that you're a small business owner over and over again with a law firm. Can you please explain to me how you consider yourself a small business owner with how many employees you have, and what kind of benefits do you provide and wages?
Yeah, I am a small business owner because we employ 6 people. It's even though it's a law office, they are still they still work.
They get minimum wage?
Right? No, they get more than minimum wage. And we pay. We have paid family leave. We're tiny, and we provide paid family leave. We pay health insurance. We have paid vacation, all of the things. So, I totally understand what it's like to be a small business owner, especially in March of 2020, right? When you're like, am I going to be able to keep this thing open? And then we have the Great Recession after, the Great Resignation after that, and I actually added employees during that time. So I think that, that speaks to the kind of employer I am.
All right, we got to get you all out of here. We made a promise. We almost didn't keep it, but we're going to get close. We have a fun question, and the fun question is we've had too much fun in this room already, quite frankly. But
I agree.
But the fun question this year is: after 2 years of pandemic, there is a feeling sometimes that at least I get of happiness that we're returning to something like normality. I realize the pandemic is not in fact over. The virus remains with us. People are still dying. On the other hand, so that's on the one hand. On the other hand, I got to sit at a lunch counter the other day and have a grilled cheese sandwich. So, point being, is there a moment of joy that you've had in the last couple of months that said to you, like, well, life was returning back to normal, that stood out to you? A moment when you did something, you went to a concert, you went to a basketball game, you went for a walk in the park.
I went to Pietro's Pizza with my son, and they have the old-timey actual tickets that come out when you win the games. That was awesome.
Tickets.
What games?
Skee ball?
Like skee ball,
Oh,
yeah.
They have skee ball?
When was that?
And then you turn the tickets in for use as scratch?
3 weeks ago, yeah. And you actually have to turn in the tickets. Not like one of those swipe cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that loves the tickets. I mean, the 10-year-old Casey loves the tickets.
Casey?
Yeah, so I have a lot of religious background, and my wife runs there's 4 women who are all different religions, and they all run a church together, like a home church, a farm church. We call it Church with Cats. But we had so it's a lot of older people, and we had our first in-person gathering just last month in a park outside under a cover, and God, it felt so good to like hug these people who've all been really careful and who don't have a traditional church community, as you might imagine from that. And I'm not going to say any more because I'll start crying.
Sherry?
My would have to be when the mask mandate was removed, and I was able to see many of my coworkers' faces for the first time, because we have been working with masks on a daily basis for 2 years.
Sure.
And it was really heartwarming to see their smiles, because I really missed seeing people's faces and smiles, and just to see how beautiful they all are without their masks on.
Great, thank you. I did not at the beginning of this endorsement interview get your ages, so let's do that real fast. Christina.
38.
Casey.
42 Secrets of Life.
Sherry.
51.
Thank you so much to all 3 of you. Really appreciate your time. We'll let you go and get to your next thing.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.